The Mediterranean was the color of a bruise at midnight. I stood at the railing of the super yacht Obsidian, my fingers wrapped around a champagne flute I hadn't drunk from, watching the moonlight shatter across the waves. The yacht was a floating palace, 6 decks of glass, antique and Italian marble, a helipad on the upper deck, an infinity pool that seemed to spill directly into the sea. The music from the ballroom drifted through the open doors behind me, a string quartet playing something soft and forgettable. 300 guests were dancing inside. Investors, celebrities, tech billionaires, minor royalty from European countries most Americans couldn't find on a map. The annual Sterling Group anniversary cruise was the most exclusive invitation in the world, and this year, my husband had finally managed to get us on the guest list. I should have been happy. I was wearing a custom Dior gown in midnight blue, diamonds at my throat that had belonged to my mother, shoes that cost more than my first car. I was 33 years old, married to a man I'd loved since college, standing on a super yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean. This was supposed to be the pinnacle, the achievement, the proof that everything had been worth it. Instead, I was watching my husband dance with another woman through the ballroom windows. Her name was Bianca Moreau. She was French-Vietnamese, 25, a former model turned art consultant who had appeared in Evan's Instagram feed 6 months ago and never left. She was wearing a red dress that looked like liquid fire, and when Evan spun her, she laughed with her whole body, her head thrown back, her hair catching the chandelier light. I watched her hand slide from his shoulder to his neck. I watched his palm press against the small of her back, fingers spread, proprietary. I watched them move together with the ease of people who had done this many, many times before. Beautiful night. I turned. My brother-in-law, Derek, had materialized beside me, 2 champagne glasses in his hands. He offered me one. I took it automatically. Beautiful, I agreed. My voice sounded distant, even to me. Evan seems to be enjoying himself. Derek's eyes flicked toward the ballroom windows, where his brother was now whispering something into Bianca's ear, with his art consultant. Don't notice. Don't care? Derek leaned against the railing beside me. Clara, you've been funding this family for 8 years. You bought Evan his first company. You paid for my mother's house. You put my sister through law school, and Evan repays you by bringing his mistress on your anniversary cruise and slow dancing with her in front of 300 people. It's not my anniversary cruise. We're just guests. Derek laughed, a short, humorless sound. You're guests. Right. And I'm the King of Spain. Clara, when are you going to stop pretending you don't see what's happening? I didn't answer, because what was there to say? That I knew, that I'd known for years, that I'd found the hotel receipts and the text messages and the lipstick on his collar so many times I'd lost count? That I confronted him and he'd apologized and I'd forgiven him because I believed that marriage meant forgiveness? Your dress is beautiful, by the way, Derek said, his voice softening. You deserve better than this. You've always deserved better than this. Before I could respond, the ballroom doors opened and Evan stepped out. His face was flushed with champagne and dancing, his bow tie slightly crooked. He saw me and Derek, and his expression flickered. Surprise, then annoyance, then the polished smile he used for investors and journalists. Clara, there you are, I've been looking for you. He walked toward us, his arms open. Bianca was just telling me the most fascinating story about her gallery opening in Paris. You'd love it. Very avant-garde. I'm sure I would. Evan's smile tightened. He didn't like my tone. He never liked it when I stopped pretending. Derek, could you give us a moment? Evan said, I need to talk to my wife. Derek looked at me. I nodded. He walked away reluctantly, glancing back once before he disappeared into the ballroom. Evan waited until he was gone before he dropped the smile. What were you two talking about? Nothing important. The weather. The champagne. You shouldn't be talking to my brother alone. It looks inappropriate. Inappropriate. I turned to face him fully. Evan, you've been dancing with Bianca Moreau for 45 minutes. Her hands have been all over you. Everyone in that ballroom is talking about it. And you're worried about me talking to your brother? Bianca is a business contact. Her gallery is interested in investing in our new venture. I'm networking. Her hand was on your neck. She's French. It's cultural. She's French-Vietnamese. She grew up in Orange County. And I've seen the texts, Evan, that I've seen the photos, that I know about the apartment in Tribeca. I know about the trip to Bali last month that you told me was a business retreat. I know everything. The words hung in the air between us. The string quartet shifted to a new piece. The Mediterranean whispered against the hull of the yacht. Evan's face changed. The polished smile vanished. The defensive charm evaporated. What was left was something I'd never seen before, something cold and calculating and utterly unafraid. How long have you known? Long enough. And you stayed. He tilted his head, studying me like I was a puzzle he'd already solved. You knew I was cheating on you and you stayed. You knew I was using your money and you stayed. You knew I was humiliating you in front of everyone we know and you stayed. What does that say about you, Clara? My hand tightened around the champagne glass. It says I believed in my marriage. It says you're weak. He stepped closer, and I caught the scent of his cologne. The cologne I'd bought him for Christmas. The cologne he'd worn on our wedding day. You've always been weak, Clara. That's why I married you. Not because I loved you, because you were easy. You had money. You had connections. You had a desperate need to be loved that made you overlook every red flag. You were the perfect target. Perfect target. The words hit me like a wave of ice water. I had been 25 when we met. A graduate student in architecture, brilliant but lonely, grieving my father's death and desperate for someone to see me. Evan had seen me. He'd courted me with poetry and roses and weekend trips to Napa. He'd proposed after 6 months, and I'd said yes, and my mother had cried. Not from joy, from fear. Don't marry him, she'd said. Clara, please. There's something wrong with him. I can feel it. I hadn't listened. I'd married him in a cathedral, in a dress that cost $30,000, and I believed I was entering a partnership. Instead, I'd entered a cage. Here's what's going to happen, Evan said, his voice dropping to a conversational murmur. Tonight, after the fireworks, you're going to have an accident. You're going to fall overboard. It's very common on these yachts. Too much champagne, high heels, a slippery railing to be by the time anyone notices you're gone. You'll be at the bottom of the Mediterranean. The world tilted. I gripped the railing harder. You're insane. I'm practical. I've already transferred your company's shares to our joint holding account. I've already updated the life insurance policies. I've already drafted the press release. Tragic accident claims beloved philanthropist Clara Ashford. Bianca is already pregnant. We're going to name the baby Clara in your honor. Pregnant? Bianca was pregnant. My husband's mistress was carrying his child, and my husband was standing on a yacht in the middle of the Mediterranean, explaining to me that he was going to murder me. Security, I whispered. The cameras, the witnesses. You'll never get away with it. The security on this yacht works for the Sterling Group. The cameras have been disabled on the section of the deck, and the witnesses, he gestured toward the ballroom, are all drunk, distracted, and perfectly willing to believe that the quiet, forgettable wife had too much champagne and took a tragic tumble. I looked at the ballroom windows. The figures inside were laughing, dancing, living their lives. None of them were looking at the railing. None of them had noticed the woman in the midnight blue dress being told about her own death. Bianca appeared in the doorway, her red dress catching the light. She walked toward us, her hips swaying, her smile serene. Is it done? She asked Evan. Almost. He held out his hand to her. She took it. They stood together, united against me, a wall of betrayal and greed. Clara, I want you to know something. Bianca's voice was soft, almost kind. This isn't personal that I don't hate you. You seem like a nice woman, but Evan wants more than you could give him. He wants power, real power, and that requires capital you weren't willing to access. Capital. I almost laughed. I've given him everything. My money, my company, my reputation. What else is there? There's a Swiss account, Evan said. A very large one. In your name. I found the statements 2 months ago. You've been hiding assets from me, Clara. Billions of dollars in assets. And I want them. The Swiss account. I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not anger, but a cold, electric clarity. The Swiss account. He had found the Swiss account. You shouldn't have done that, I said quietly. Done what? Found your secret stash? I'm your husband. What's yours is mine. No. I let go of the railing and stood up straight. You shouldn't have told me your plan, because now I know exactly what you are, and I know exactly what I need to do. Evan's eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? 8 years. I took a step toward him. 8 years. I let you take from me. Did I let you use my money, my connections, my reputation? Did I let you humiliate me in public and diminish me in private? I let you convince me that I was the problem. Too needy, too jealous, too demanding. I let you hollow me out until I was nothing but a shell of the woman I used to be. And you know why I stayed? Because you're weak. Because I was protecting you. He blinked. What? The Swiss account isn't mine. It's my family's, my real family. The one you don't know about, because I never told you. Because my grandmother told me, on my wedding day, that if I ever revealed my identity to you, I would be disinherited. She said you would use me. She said you would drain me dry, and she was right. So I hid it. I hid so completely that even I forgot who I was. Bianca's serene smile flickered. Your real family? What are you talking about? I reached up and unclasped the diamond necklace at my throat. My tea wasn't just jewelry. It was a key to the literal key, shaped into a pendant, disguised as an heirloom. I'd worn it for 8 years, and no one had ever asked what it unlocked. My name isn't Clara Ashford, I said. It's Clara Vance. Evan's face went blank. Vance? Vance as in? Vance International, the company that owns this yacht, the company that owns the Sterling Group, the company that owns half the commercial real estate in the Western Hemisphere. My grandmother is Eleanor Vance, the founder. My mother was her only daughter, and I am her sole heir. Bianca laughed a nervous, disbelieving sound. That's absurd. If you were a Vance, everyone would know. It would be public. You'd be on magazine covers. I didn't want to be on magazine covers. Did I want it to be normal? Did I want it to be loved for who I was? Not what I had to S.O. I changed my name. I built my own company, Ashford Architecture, with a small loan from my grandmother, and I pretended I was self-made, that I met Evan, and I married him. And I thought, finally, someone loves me. Someone sees me. But he didn't. I continued, my voice hardening. He saw my money, he saw my connections, he saw a target, and for 8 years, he used me, but he never knew the truth. He never knew that the entire time he was stealing from me, he was stealing peanuts compared to what I actually controlled. I pulled out my phone. Now, let me show you what happens when you threaten a Vance. I pressed a single button. The music in the ballroom stopped. The lights on the deck flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness for a single breath before emergency lights clicked on. Cold, blue, surgical. Footsteps thundered up the stairs. Men in dark suits appeared on every side. Not the yacht security, but my security. The team my grandmother had insisted on assigning to me 8 years ago, the team I had told to stay hidden, the team that had been watching this entire conversation through the necklace pendant I had never taken off. Mrs. Vance. The lead agent stepped forward. He was a tall man with a shaved head and the calm, deadly demeanor of someone who had been in special forces before he moved to private security. We've detained the yacht security team. We have audio and video of the threat against your life. What are your instructions? Evan staggered backward, pulling Bianca with him. No, this is a misunderstanding. I wasn't serious. Clara, tell them I wasn't serious. You were serious enough to transfer my company's shares. You were serious enough to update the life insurance. You were serious enough to disable the cameras and plan my accident. That's conspiracy to commit murder. Evan, that's fraud. That's embezzlement. That's enough to put you in prison for the rest of your life. Bianca's composure shattered. I didn't know. I didn't know about the murder plan. He told me you were getting divorced. He told me you were abusive. He told you what he needed to tell you to make you his accomplice. And you believed him because you wanted what I had. The money, the status, the man. Well, you can have him. Both of you. You can have each other die in prison. I turned to the security team. Detain them. Full restraint. Contact the Italian authorities. We're in international waters, but the nearest port is Naples. My legal team will meet us there. Understood, Madam President. The title hit the air like a thunderclap. Madam President, the title my grandmother used. The title reserved for the head of Vance International. Evan heard it. His face crumpled. President? You're the president of Vance International? That's Clara. That's $100 billion company. That's your... I'm the woman you tried to kill. I stepped toward him, close enough to see the panic in his eyes. And I'm the woman who's going to destroy you. Not just your freedom, your reputation, your name, your legacy. Everything you've ever touched, I'm going to scrub clean of your existence. By the time I'm done, Evan Whitmore will be a cautionary tale that parents tell their daughters. Don't marry a man like Evan Whitmore. Don't trust a man like Evan Whitmore. Don't let a man like Evan Whitmore anywhere near your heart. He lunged at me. The security team intercepted him before he'd taken 2 steps, pinning his arms behind his back, forcing him to his knees on the deck of the yacht he'd thought he was going to inherit. Clara, please, I'm your husband. I love you. I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but I can change. I can be better. Just give me a chance. I looked down at him. This man who had spent 8 years draining me dry, who had danced with his mistress at my anniversary, who had stood on this deck and explained exactly how he was going to kill me, and I felt nothing. You know what the saddest part is? I said, if you had just asked for a divorce, I would have given it to you, but I would have let you go. I would have settled generously because I believed you were my partner, but you didn't want a divorce. You wanted everything, and now you're going to get nothing. I turned to the lead agent. Take him away. And Bianca too. Separate holding rooms until we reached Naples. Bianca was sobbing now, her red dress crumpled, her mascara streaking, her belly The belly that contained my husband's child, heaving with desperate breaths. Please, Mrs. Vance, I'll do anything. I'll testify against him. I'll tell everyone what he planned. Just please don't send me to prison. You can tell your story to the judge. The agents dragged them away. Evan was still shouting, threats, please, my name. But his voice faded as they were taken below deck, until the only sounds were the Mediterranean wind and the distant wail of Italian Coast Guard sirens. The ballroom doors opened and the guests spilled out, confused and alarmed, demanding to know why the lights had gone out, why security was everywhere, why the vice president of Sterling Group was being handcuffed on the deck. Derek pushed through the crowd. His face was pale, his eyes wide. Clara, what the hell is happening? They said Evan was arrested. They said. It's a long story. I put my hand on his arm. You were right about everything that I should have left him years ago, but I was so afraid of being alone that I convinced myself I needed him. I don't need him, that I never did. Clara, he stared at me, and I saw something shift in his expression. Respect, maybe, or recognition. You're not who I thought you were. No, I smiled. I'm not. My name is Clara Vance, and I'm the president of Vance International, the company that owns this yacht, the company your brother was trying to steal from. The company I'm going to rebuild into something he would never recognize. I turned to face the crowd of guests, the confused billionaires, the alarmed celebrities, the minor royalty clutching their pearls. Phones were out. Cameras were recording. The story was already spreading across the world. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, and my voice carried across the deck without a microphone. I apologize for the disruption to your evening. There has been a security incident. My husband, Evan Whitmore, and his accomplice, Bianca Morrow, have been arrested for conspiracy to commit murder and fraud. The Italian authorities will be taking them into custody shortly. In the meantime, the bar is open, the fireworks will proceed as scheduled, and I will be giving a press conference in the morning. Someone in the back started clapping. Then someone else. Then the entire deck was applauding. Not for Evan, not for the spectacle, but for me. For the woman who had just unmasked herself in front of 300 strangers and emerged, finally, as who she was always meant to be. Derek stepped up beside me. What happens now? Now! I looked out at the Mediterranean, at the moonlight on the waves, at the distant lights of the Italian coast. Now I go home to my real home. To my grandmother, who's been waiting for me to wake up for 8 years. To my company, which has been run by a board of directors who never understood my vision. To my life, which I'm finally going to live on my own terms. And Evan! Evan is going to prison. Bianca is going to prison. The baby, if there's a baby, will be born into a world where its father is a convicted felon, and I didn't choose that for it. But I didn't choose any of this, and I'm done carrying the consequences of other people's choices. The Coast Guard ships were approaching, their lights cutting through the darkness. I watched them come and felt, for the first time in 8 years, like I could breathe. 6 months later, I stood in the penthouse office of Vance Tower in Manhattan, looking out at a city I now controlled more of than anyone else alive. The divorce had been finalized in 4 weeks. Evan had signed everything from his jail cell, desperate for any concession, and my lawyers had given him none. The criminal trial was still pending, but the evidence was overwhelming. He would be convicted. He would serve decades. Bianca had pled guilty to lesser charges in exchange for her testimony. She'd given birth to a daughter in a prison hospital. The child had been taken in by her parents. I felt a strange, distant pity for that baby. Innocent, as all children are innocent, born into a mess she had made. The company was thriving. Under my direct leadership, Vance International had acquired 3 competitors and launched a philanthropic foundation that was already building schools in 12 countries. My grandmother had retired to an advisory role, and at her retirement party, she'd taken my hand and said, I knew you'd come back. I just didn't know it would take so long. Derek was my chief operating officer now. He'd distanced himself from his family, testified against his brother, and thrown himself into the work of rebuilding what Evan had tried to destroy. We were close, closer than I'd ever been to anyone. He was the only person in the world who understood what I'd survived. My phone buzzed. A text from him. Board meeting in 10. Don't be late. Also, someone sent you flowers. A lot of flowers. The whole office smells like a garden. I laughed. Adrian Sterling again. The man had been sending me flowers every week since the news broke. He said he admired my strategic acumen. I said he needed to find a new hobby. I typed back, tell Adrian I'm still not interested, but if he wants to buy me a building, I'm open to negotiation. I put down my phone and turned back to the window. The sun was setting over Manhattan, painting the towers in shades of gold and rose and burning orange. Somewhere below me, Millions of people were living their lives, making their choices, surviving their own battles. I had survived mine. I had been broken, betrayed, pushed to the edge of death by the man who had promised to love me. But I had clawed my way back. I had remembered who I was, and I had won. Not because I was lucky, not because I was rich, but because I had finally learned that the only person who could save me was myself.